Right, so yesterday we were served up to one of the best press conferences I have seen in a very long time. It was between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn for their highly anticipated rescheduled grudge match. And it was supposed to be the first of two press conferences, one in Manchester and one in London. But now it's looking like the one in London might not even take place because these two lads went at it, and fuck me, did it go off. So without any further ado, put your feet up, get your popcorn ready, and let's have a watch back of the best moments.
I can't believe it. I mean, I couldn't believe it the first time around. And, you know, we got to a stage, the fight was announced.
Eddie,
it was the...
you know I don't like you, right? What on God's sweet green earth makes you think I'm going to sit here and listen to any of the bollocks that you have to say about it?
To be honest, I mean, you're going to have to.
We're going to skip past whatever bullshit it was you thought you was going to talk about, and we're going to continue on with the press conference. Ade, you may proceed. This is not the Eddie Hearn show.
One thing's for sure, it ain't the Chris Eubank show.
This is not the Eddie Hearn show.
No.
This is Eubank versus Benn, so you can either sabotage this.
You got your man to your right. He's going to say a few words.
You can either sabotage the event, and I'll just start talking to Ben personally, directly, or you can be quiet and we can move on with the press conference. I don't want to hear anything you have to say.
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
We can be here all day.
I've been addressed.
We can be here all day.
I've been addressed.
I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Now, I love Eddie Hearn, right? This man can sell a fight like no other promoter that I have ever known. And there are so many fighters that, without having Eddie Hearn's backing, wouldn't have achieved a shred of the exposure that they have been able to get during their careers. Basically, what I'm saying is, Eddie can take a boring fight and he can put a narrative on it and he can spin it and he can make it interesting. But sometimes fights don't need narratives. They are already written, and sometimes there are fighters in the opposite corner that don't need Eddie, that are able to take the mic and do whatever they want with it. And that is exactly what Chris Eubank Jr. did. This press conference took me back to the days of Hay against Bellew. Who remembers that one, right? And it almost seemed a little bit like Chris Eubank Jr. had been watching that Hay against Bellew press conference right before he took to the stage, because he definitely took a leaf out of David Hay's book. In fact, he's taken more than a leaf. Wait till you see what happens next. This fella took the whole fucking tree. But I've got to give props to Chris Eubank Jr., man. I've literally followed him from the pro debut, being that he was the son of a legend, and in these sort of media events, he used to be dry as sand, stiff as an ironing board. I remember when he fought Billy Joe Saunders, and he just did not look comfortable whenever the cameras were on him. But recently, the last couple of years, he's really come into his own. I was out in Saudi for his last fight, and in his own subtle way, he's got a real good ability of being able to steal the show. So rather than living in his dad's shadows and trying to sort of replicate that facade that his dad always had on camera, Chris Eubank Jr. is now very much his own man.
Conor Benn, how are we feeling about smashing this geezer to pieces April 26th?
Let's hear from Conor.
Yeah? Because I'll tell you something now. I can't wait. I can't wait. I look at you, I look at Nigel. I look at Nigel wants to get in the ring and have a tear up.
You know what? Listen, Chris can say what he wants. The bottom line is, his dad don't even like him. You could not pay that man enough money to sit in this man's corner. Now that's an accomplishment, Chris. That's an accomplishment. Well done. The most unlikable geezer on the planet. Even your dad don't like you.
Maybe.
Shit, man. Drop the mic.
Oh, he's gone personal. Ben's gone personal because he knows that when you have got a man like Chris Eubank Jr. who just stays cool, calm and collective and doesn't really break character all that often, the one way you can upset any man on this earth is to mention his family. And maybe he feels like that will break Chris Eubank Jr.'s rhythm and get him to come into this fight too fired up up and force himself to make mistakes and whatnot. But many men have tried that with Chris Eubank Jr. before, and it has failed in the past. But I'm cool with it. I really do believe that all's fair in love and war, and it's a valid point, you know. You look at Chris Eubank Jr.'s career. Early on, Eubank Sr. was literally not only in his corner for every fight, he was by his side every single time he stepped out. He was always on camera with his son, and he was very, very much tasked with guiding the career, not just in the ring, but in every public appearance. But there was a time when Junior decided to become his own man, in my opinion. He stepped away from his dad. He went and trained with the likes of Roy Jones Jr. and with Bomac, and he moved away from not only his dad, but obviously his dad's old trainer in Ronnie Davis. And I actually thought that was a good thing, because I feel like the character that Chris Eubank Sr. is, it can be a little bit overruled-in, and it's a bit of an unnecessary weight to carry and to manage when you're a boxer and you're trying to please and appease your old man when you've obviously got demons of your own to fight during your camp. But to be fair, I think quite a lot of us actually know why and when the relationship between Chris Eubank Jr. and Chris Eubank Sr. actually broke down. And before I go too deep on this, I don't want it to look like I'm painting Conor Benn as the villain here, because as I previously said, all is fair in love and war. Now, despite stepping away from corner duties and having that hands-on approach in his son's career, Chris Eubank Sr. did still have a healthy relationship, from the outside at least, with Chris Eubank Jr., even once he was being trained by the likes of Roy Jones. And for me, it was around the time where there was obviously the tragic and unexpected passing of Chris Eubank Sr.'s son, Eubank Jr.'s brother, Sebastian Eubank. And how could a tragic incident like that not hit the family so hard? Believe me, whether it was public or not, the whole family would have grieved massively from that incident. And it's just my observation here, but Chris Eubank Sr. has never really been the same since that. So when the fight was first made between Eubank Jr. and Benn a couple of years back, Chris Eubank Sr. actually showed huge disapproval of that fight, but it wasn't so much the fight he didn't like, it was the rehydration clause, or basically the fact that Chris Eubank Jr. was going to be going into the ring dehydrated. And I remember a couple of interviews where I had seen Eubank Sr. speak about just how dangerous that is for a boxer, which obviously it can be massively affecting to your performance and to your general well-being to do anything dehydrated, let alone go into a ring and trade blows with another man. And let's be honest, right, some of you guys might be younger, but some of you watching may be parents, and if you had a child that boxes, and God forbid you had another child that had passed away, I do genuinely believe that you're going to feel huge discomfort and possibly even anger towards your other child for accepting a fight that in your eyes is putting himself in a harmful situation, or even in the worst case risking his own life. And I get it, we're all risking our life to some degree when we step into our boxing ring, but weight training is a real thing, people, and no one's telling me that that rehydration clause and the catch weight agreements around that first fight were right, you know. Chris Eubank Jr. had never boxed lighter than middleweight. Conor Benn came through at what, 10 stone, was boxing for most of his career at welterweight. In my opinion, it just wasn't safe. And you can push back on that and say, well, hold on, it's not safe for Conor Benn because he's the naturally lighter and smaller man, and therefore Chris Eubank Jr. has the advantage. And you might be right. You may be right, but I'd rather be lighter than the guy in front of me than weight drained. And Chris Eubank Sr. would have warned his son of this. He would have told him, you will be depleted in that ring. And possibly Chris Eubank Jr. didn't listen to his dad and obviously thought, well, do you know what? I'm being paid well. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be my own man and do my own thing. And being the stubborn man that we accept that Chris Eubank Sr. is, maybe that is where the contact was cut between the two.
The bad guy is back again. He still never cheats. He still never lies. He still never cuts any corners. And yet he is still the bad guy. Isn't it incredible? For the first time in boxing history, there are two bad guys. I've been booed into every British fight I've had since 2014.
No one cares, Chris.
That's 11 years. 11 years of being the bad guy. I'm a veteran at this stage, a supervillain, if you will. And it's a cold, dark moment in your life when you realize you're in an environment where thousands and thousands and thousands of people want to see you get hurt and lose. On April 26th, I'm probably going to be walking into the same environment, but it's okay because I'm not going to be alone. Like I said, there's two bad guys in this fight, and there's one in me who has accepted his fate. The other still wants and believes and dreams and prays.
Chris, speak on behalf of yourself.
Of being
speak on behalf of
the
yourself.
good guy, of
Speak
being,
on behalf
of being the
yourself.
golden boy. That's what I believe.
No. Speak on behalf of yourself.
I know. I'm just saying what I believe your mindset is at this stage.
This whole time, this whole 10 minutes you've been talking, it's been rubbish.
It's okay.
And no one's even like, what do you want, a violin?
The sickening thing about this situation is, Conor, you had it.
I have it. You don't have it.
You had it.
No, I have it.
You had
Your career's
everything.
done. You're fighting a welterweight at the end. That sums up your career.
You had the whole public behind you. Everyone wanted you to win. Everyone wanted you to be the next big thing in boxing. You had it.
But nobody cares still, Chris. You're still going on.
Pissed it all away. You literally pissed it all away.
Again, I'm sounding like a bit of a Eubank Jr. fanboy here all of a sudden, and who would have thought that? I never really liked him earlier on in his career, but this was very, very clever from Chris Eubank Jr. in my opinion. Conor Benn has always come across as an overly emotional character, which is in contrast to Eubank Jr., who's always come across as a calm, cool character that doesn't show emotion, especially public displays of emotion. So letting Conor Benn know that he will no longer have the fan and the public support. He is considered a cheat by so many, and that he will now be fighting in hostile environments, for me, is a very clever tactical chess move here. And let's be fair, he ain't wrong, is he? I'm someone that have put my hand in my pocket plenty of times to go and watch Conor Benn fight. I considered myself a fan of Conor Benn, and now I don't consider myself a fan of Conor Benn. That doesn't mean I wish badly upon him, but it's true, and I know a lot of people that feel the same way as me. And yeah, I get it, he's had a couple of fights over in the States since then, but it's different. The American crowd aren't as in touch and might not have even known one of Conor Benn's situation, and in some cases who Conor Benn even was. So stepping back on to home soil, coming out, if Conor Benn does receive boos from the crowd, if he's not the favourite going into that fight in terms of popularity, who knows? Who knows how that might affect him? But one thing we do know is it will not affect Chris Eubank Jr. because he's been there, done it, and worn the t-shirt. So for Conor Benn, whether or not it affects him, he's going to have to take on this challenge on the biggest stage, in the biggest fight of his life today. And it may well be a challenge that he overcomes with flying colours. He might take on that villain arc and make it his own. But until I see him do it, I do believe it's going to be challenging.
Chris Eubank Jr. is an arrogant fucking prick. And I can't wait until he smashes the eggs out of Conor Benn. Conor, I've been meaning to ask you for a long time, it's interested me. How many eggs did you have to eat to fail those two drugs tests, you dirty alum?
The reality is...
Please tell me.
The reality is...
It's been racking my brains for a long time.
No problem.
Everyone wants to know. How many eggs did you eat?
The reality is, I've been cleared 3 times by the NADP, by the WBC, by UCAD, by the way, which people are a lot smarter than you. Number 1, I've been cleared. 2, you will never be cleared of being a wanker. Period. Okay. That's it.
So when you say you've been cleared, what does that mean?
I'm cleared of people by a lot smarter than you.
What does it mean?
You have the IQ of a 5-year-old child.
Does that mean that the drugs weren't in your system?
I've been cleared. Done.
There you go.
That's it. No, you keep going on, but I've been cleared 3 times.
The entire public wants to know why
but that's the truth.
There were performance-enhancing drugs in your system, and all you and Eddie can come up with
do your research.
after 2.5 years
Do your
He's
research.
been cleared. We can't say how or why.
Do your research,
But he's
Chris.
been cleared. It's okay.
Firstly, I've got to say, that "you will never be cleared of being a wanker" line had me. Conor Benn done well there. That was a good one. But, again, I've got to side with Eubank Jr., man. I think he had Conor Benn hook, line, and sinker here. Because Conor Benn has never been able to answer the question of how, what, or why those drugs were found in his system. And despite officially being cleared, you weren't able to box on home soil for 2 years. That certainly would have hit you in the pocket, as well as all of the legal fees that you apparently have spent to clear your name. So, personally, I'm just saying, if I'm Conor Benn, I'm suing. Damages, loss of earnings, defamation of character. I'm not being funny. You would imagine that there is some sort of justice that Conor Benn would want to seek if he is fully innocent. And listen, so many high-profile fighters have been popped for PEDs. Canelo, Ryan Garcia, Tyson Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, Dillian White, the list goes on. But what all of these men have in common is, however valid you view them to be, they were able to give an excuse, a reason, an answer as to why they failed the tests. And even in doing so, in some cases, still had to serve bans. But if you're not able to give that answer, it's always going to smell a bit fishy, isn't it? So whether you're claiming it's tainted meat, nasal spray, or eggs, or God knows what else, we need some sort of answer, don't we? I know people that say, oh, stop going on about it now, but what about that 196-page document or whatever it is? What did that say? What were the findings in that? Why aren't you able to share any of the information from that document with us? And when you say experts cleverer than Eubank himself have cleared him and shown that he didn't do anything wrong, why don't you give us an insight into what those experts said? And to say do your research, listen, I've done my fucking research and I still can't find out why you failed the tests. So until I learn otherwise, I'm just going to assume that the 2 years spent away from boxing on home soil when you were on a good run of form and you were making good money could now be kind of looked at as time served, and now we're just at a point where money talks, doesn't it? But who knows, eh? I'm hardly a fucking expert myself. Anyway, let's get into the juicy part of this, and that is the face-off.
It's Ben versus Eubank. The limit 160 pounds. The family feud goes on.
Oh, temper's flaring there.
I got that one wrong, didn't I? Fuming now, Conor Benn.
Well, sorry to say I did tell you before it. You called that one, and it really has erupted down here on the stage.
Fuck me, if that has not lit the fuse for this fight, then I don't know what I will. And at a glance, right, it just looks like Eubank Jr. slapped Conor Benn around the face. And I'll tell you what, there was actually some force there. Maybe we can read into how easily Eubank Jr. was able to sort of move Conor Benn across with that slap. But I actually think that we need to VAR this one. I think we need to take a closer inspection, because he didn't just slap Conor Benn, he has just egged Conor Benn. And for those of you who don't understand the irony of this, many alluded to the possibility that Conor Benn failed his drugs test because of egg contamination and massive amounts of consumption of those eggs. So for Chris Eubank Jr. to slap him with an egg is very, very ironic. Now, I remember being out in Riyadh when Chris Eubank Jr. was desperately trying to cut off every single bit of weight that he could, and Conor Benn took the opportunity to run up on a weight-drained Chris Eubank Jr. And one man who definitely still remembers that moment is Chris Eubank Jr. And for me, this was payback. Right, I've seen enough. For me, that is 1-0 to Chris Eubank Jr. He wins the first press conference. Let's see what Conor Benn can do in the next one. And many will say that he's gone too far, but for me, that's fair crack. Trust me, Conor Benn's head is going to be a little bit scrambled after that one. Revenge will definitely be on the menu, because I don't think there's no way that Conor Benn's going to be thinking, I'm letting this slide here, you know. I don't know. I don't think he'll ignore it. I don't think he'll ignore it. Do you know what? He'll be angry. He'll be heated. Some would even say that he might be shell-shocked. But regardless of all of this, the fans will be excited. Hey? Come on. You can't not let me have a bit of fun here. But just quickly, the beef didn't stop there, by the way. Just have a look at this. Right, wait, because you might have missed that. Hold on, we need another VAR check here, because is that Eddie Hearn pushing Ben Shalom there? Now, for a man who spent years ranting and raving about the fact that Frank Warren hated the fact that Eddie Hearn was the up-and-comer, he don't fucking contradict himself with old Ben Shalom now, does he? And by the way, I'm not a massive Ben Shalom fan myself. I admire the fact that he's made the Liam Cameron against Ben Whittaker rematch, but I do think he's too protective of his fighters, and I think that as boxing fans we do miss out on a lot of the fights that we want to see because he's protective of those boxers. I'm more of an Eddie Hearn fan, if I'm being completely honest, but it is funny to see the way that the roles have now reversed, because Eddie's basically become exactly what he used to accuse Frank Warren of being, hasn't he? Like, Ben Shalom's a new kid on the block, and I'm not having it whether or not they do interviews together and Eddie says, oh, I quite like this fella now. Liar. He fucking hates him, you can tell. Nothing wrong with it, by the way. We all love it. I'm here for it. I love a bit of beef. So either way, this press conference definitely is one to go down in the history books for me. But there you go. There's my take on yesterday's presser. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Good for boxing, bad for boxing, more excited to see the fight. Either way, I don't know. I want to hear from you guys. And most importantly, smash the subscribe button if you are not already. Hit a like on the video if you've made it to the end. You might as well now anyway, and I will see you all in the next one.